now that I still have your time a little bit, we could
Sure.
spend. I wanted to spend a couple minutes on Karsen Dorwart, just like while obviously,
Right.
just to get your thoughts on the player, because obviously we're not like crushing Michigan State tape.
Sure.
But yeah, I just wanted to get like your opinion on what they could get with the player of like he's going to be in the NHL. They already are obviously signed him. He's
Mhm.
wearing number 23. He's in practice today. I think he's on a practice between a line of Garnet Hathaway and Nick Delorier, so it's not great.
All
But
right.
just
Okay.
starting, you have to earn it. You have to earn it. But
Sure.
what's your just impressions of what like he could maybe be in the NHL or even just overall in the organization?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, I mean, he'll be what, 23 by the time next season
Yeah.
rolls around, so he's already pretty deep down the he's pretty deep down the road now. But I was watching him last night actually cuz I was watching just a bunch of players that have recently been signed or played in the NHL, and just I like to do that once in a while. I mean, I think with him, I think that a bottom six role, if he is an NHL player, is kind of where he probably will be. Like, I think that the best things I picked up about him was the puck protection and his ability to play under pressure. Like, I can see why the Flyers signed him, where, he just finds a way to get pucks through pressure, get pucks down low, like things that are not flashy but really effective. And as a college player, I think I can definitely see how a player, he's not the most amazing skater, he's not the most amazing shooter, he's not Denver Barkey, right? But I think I can see why a player like him would take a few years in college to sort of get to where he is now, where I think strength training comes in a lot, and just drills of protecting pucks along the boards, and putting your body in between opponents and the puck. Like, I was watching him and he was playing with Shane Van Saggy a little bit.
Mhm.
And Van Saggy's a guy who I think has a little bit more pace in his game and a little bit more pure sort of physical, like raw energy. But I think Dorwart complements that with like resilience, and just like he's a guy who gets his butt in the way. Like that's the type of guy I saw there a lot of the time. And so I'll be very curious to see how he does in a little bit of in an NHL spurt. He didn't strike me as like, oh my God, this guy is a huge pickup for an NHL team. But compared to the other NCAA guys that have signed so far in this season, like he's definitely one of the more intriguing ones, I would say. That I think, based on how he plays and the size that he has, and the puck protection ability, like maybe he could go out and be a checking line minutes eating guy who, and they get him for free, right? All they did
Yeah.
was pay money, and who knows where he goes from here. But it is interesting to see him playing with two whatever you want to call those two
Guys.
guys. Yeah, like
Two guys.
two like bruisers.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if he's that, but maybe they think he could be that. But for me, it's
Yeah,
more about like the finer sort of finesse parts of the defensive side of the game, or the possession side of the game in the offensive zone.
yeah, I think it was his first practice, and like I'm sure they don't play until Saturday in Montreal, so I'm sure they're
Right.
just like just get on the ice and play with guys. Like I don't think Deloria will even be in the lineup.
Okay.
So like I'm sure they're just like get on the ice with our fourth liners and then see what happens. But yeah, I my impression of like him was not a college free agent that you kind of see with all these like super high scorers, and then
Yeah.
they don't have anything that's translatable. The tools that are there, like they're signed because they put up a bunch of points, and then nothing happens, and then just like
Yeah.
you're an AHL, you're a TJ Brennan but a forward, you're like
Yeah.
that kind of guy. um of course Philly fans or Flyers fans know all about TJ Brennan,
Oh
but
yeah.
but I think he's like my go-to of just like an AHL guy that's like excels, like has a ceiling of just being elite in the AHL, whatever.
Right.
Um, so yeah, for me, what I saw from, and I didn't even get to see a full game of Dort, but just like some highlights and reading
Yeah.
some reports of just like he's a guy that the tools that are there and what he does on the ice is translatable in a bottom six role, like you just said. Like it's just a way that he approaches the game, like a decent enough motor that he could just be in a support role rather than just like he's put up a decent amount of points throughout his 3 years in college, but he's not going to be kind of that guy in the NHL. And if he does that, then I think the Flyers have a decent player, like maybe just a I think I mentioned it before on like a podcast, but like a Ryan Poehling replacement because he's their fourth line center right now, and obviously not as good as a skater as Poehling, but might just do more of the like more of the I want to say legwork, but that like applies to skating, but more of like
Sure. The grunt work. Like,
yeah, the gutsy
yeah.
grinding, like
I mean,
whatever.
there are two sides of the coin in the NHL, right? Like, I think it's funny when people talk about how the NHL sort of like, oh, at certain areas of the game, speed and skill is in vogue, and then it turns to physicality, and then it goes back to speed and skill, and they think it's this like pendulum. But in reality, I think it's just the nature of the game that you can play a number of different styles of play and still be pretty effective, right? Like, I think that Dorwart's the type of guy where again, I'm not sure about how much of an NHL career there is there, but he has that strength on his feet, that resilience where it's like, you know, maybe he's not the fastest, most skilled, whatever guy, but does it matter that much, right? Like with Denver Barkey, it's almost like the inverse, where there's so much skill and there's a lot of speed and there's a lot of creativity and all of this stuff, but when things get grinded down a little bit and slowed down and there's more these finer detail moments, you know, of you want to keep possession of the puck somehow, Dorwart kind of is a better version, I would say. Uh and so again, it's like how do you weigh those things, right? Like which one is better? I know which way I think I would go, but I mean, I think Dorwart is far more likely to be like a fourth line, third line NHL minutes eater than Denver Barkey is, right? Like I think there's just a very big difference in style of play that puts them in a different pathway. So yeah, I mean, I was interested to see him after I saw him get signed and was curious because someone also asked about him on the show on Thursday. But yeah, I mean, interesting player. Good to see that he'll get a crack in the NHL and see how it goes. But yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, a big we'll see.